this in our latest of the series of Meet the Lender. And this time around, I'm really, really pleased to be joined by Lucy, who's a accounts manager who works for Zephyr Homeloans. Now, Zephyr are another kind of specialist lender. You won't find them on a high street. They've been around though for a really long time, so actually nearly 10 years, quietly sort of working in the background, just basically supporting landlords. They've got some really nice niches to their lending criteria, which I'm sure Lucy's going to tell you all about. And actually we have found them to be a lender who's incredibly easy to work with. So not a large volume based lender. Like I say, they're kind of growing organically, looking to kind of support landlords, taking on probably slightly more niche deals. And by niche deals, I'm talking about things like large incorporations that not every lender is able to kind of get their heads around. So hopefully today Lucy will have loads of interesting stuff to share with you about Zephyr Homeloans. Lucy, thank you so much for joining me today. Absolutely lovely to see you. We are going to be going through the same questions that we give to every lender that sits in the hot seat. It's your turn this week on a Friday morning. So if you're good to get going, the first question for you will be, who would you say is a typical Zephyr borrower?
I would say mainly for Zephyr, it's your professional landlords. So especially those with portfolios. So as we're kind of a specialist buy-to-let lender, about probably 2/3 of our applications come through on the limited companies. So that's going to be really an area we really excel in.
Excellent. Okay, so in terms of limited companies, because I know you guys can do some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
What is it you kind of look for with a limited company in terms of, for example, structure, and also can you guys do incorporations?
Yes, we can do incorporations, which is, I think the market's crying out for it at the moment. Structure-wise of the companies, we're really good because we can have up to 4 directors on the limited company, and we only underwrite the directors. We don't underwrite the shareholders. So the shareholders can have a maximum share of 20%. And we don't look at them. We're only really interested about the directors of the company. So we're seeing it quite a lot where there's kind of minors on the limited company, which is absolutely fine. As I say, we don't look at them at all.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that, because I'm certainly noticing when limited company first became kind of more normal, let's say, after Section 24, the company structures we used to see were super flat, super straightforward. So, to be very stereotypical, husband and wife are directors and husband and wife own the company.
Yeah.
But I think what people are starting to realise is that actually if you use a limited company, it does pave the way for some kind of estate planning, that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
So we're seeing more and more people bring their children into the mix as shareholders, as an example. So wonderful that you guys can pick those up. And on the subject of things you guys can do, what would you say are Zephyr's top 3 USPs?
The top 3, I would probably say we're really good with our HMOs and multi-unit freehold blocks. And we really kind of understand the complexities behind all of the properties and the licensing requirements that come with all of that as well. Alongside that, and so we have just kind of expanded our product range as well on the HMOs and the multi-units, where we're now lending up to 12 bedrooms, where that was, as of Wednesday afternoon, that was kind of capped at 6. So really good that we're kind of expanding into that space kind of more and more.
Okay, so 1 USP, so your next USP.
Yeah, next USP. So we're really good, as I mentioned, on the limited companies, and we do the same rates for both the individuals and the limited companies. And then probably finally, our USP would be on our portfolios. So we're specialists on really large portfolios. So we've got no upper loan limit. So we can take the really, really big portfolios, and the client only pays the application fee on the first property that comes in as well. So the £200 application fee, they only pay that once. And then we do kind of handhold both the broker and the landlord throughout that whole process as well, with one dedicated underwriter for the whole portfolio, just to make things kind of as easy as possible for everybody.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I know that at MFB we've done some fairly chunky incorporations with Zephyr over the years, and you guys have been pretty exceptional at them as well. Just to loop back to a couple of points you made, just because I think you're making some really good kind of highlights in terms of USPs. So you mentioned you've just increased the number of rooms you can do on HMOs to 12, which is great and
Yes.
actually puts you beyond a lot of your competitors.
Yeah,
How about multi-units? How many self-contained units can you do on one title?
that's up to 12 as well.
12 as well. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Lovely, lovely. And in terms of background portfolio, so there's no limit on the number of properties in the
No,
background for you guys.
no, no
Fabulous.
limit, and saying anything that within the portfolio that isn't coming to ourselves, we just stress test it at 100%. So as long as it's paying for itself, we're happy.
That's really good as well, actually, because often I think, particularly, and I'm not going to name any names, but some of the kind of more high street lenders, when they're doing background portfolio stress testing, often we find that causes us the biggest headache.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
good that you've got a solution there for those people that are coming unstuck with those calculations with other lenders.
definitely.
Thank you. Okay, so in terms of applications, obviously at Zephyr you're very keen to lend money. We know that, but you're going to have to decline applications from time to time. What would you say in your experience is the kind of most common reason that Zephyr have to decline applications?
See, a lot of the time with our declines, we find they actually happen before the dip or the application even comes in, because we work really closely with the brokers. A lot of the time they call us first, so we can actually have that conversation, because they're not typically just a very simple case. They are normally quite complex. So that conversation beforehand, where we can actually really get into the detail and the complexity of the case, really helps kind of declines later on down the line.
Yeah.
If it is a kind of application stage, mainly it's due to us kind of finding something with the property itself when the valuer goes out, or something that hasn't been kind of declared to us at the very beginning. If there's like credit issues or something along those lines, is that information that kind of crops up throughout the process.
Yeah. Do you know, it's so interesting that every lender that we've had on this Meet the Lender series, they were all saying the same thing. It's valuations, or it's generally adverse credit, which people weren't aware of to begin with. So
Yeah.
there's a theme there across the piece. Thank you very much for that. So now thinking about if someone was going to be applying for a mortgage at Zephyr Home Loans,
Yeah.
what's a really good kind of tip that you can share in terms of making sure their application goes through really smoothly?
I would say a lot of it is getting all of the information together right at the very beginning of the process. The more kind of paperwork, the more information that's kind of supplied at the very beginning, we find the easier the whole process tends to be.
Yeah, okay. And on that note then, what I think would be really interesting. So what would be kind of, for a landlord who's got maybe a portfolio of say 5 buy-to-lets in the background, limited
Yeah.
company purchase, what is the paperwork you'd expect people to kind of have to hand?
I think at the very initial stages of it, it would just be kind of that background information of, and say, the properties, the loan to values, the rental incomes on them. We typically ask her, and say, especially with the portfolios, for it all to be on a spreadsheet. So then we can then really kind of look into the detail of each property and the information there as well.
So a good spreadsheet. It's
Definitely.
amazing actually how many landlords do have a spreadsheet. They've all got a spread. They're very, very good.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not.
We love a
I'm not.
spreadsheet.
Thank you. So now if we move away from Zephyr as a kind of current offering and thinking about into the future, and we obviously have the Renters' Rights Bill on the horizon.
Yeah.
At the time of recording this video, because this is obviously going to be around for a long time, the Renters' Rights Bill is going through its kind of process to become law. We're recording this on the 17th of October. There's an expectation it will pass into law in the next week or so. Are Zephyr currently planning on making any changes to their lending policy in response to the Renters' Rights Bill?
So we're not kind of currently anticipating any changes to the way that we lend, but of course we'll be keeping an eye on kind of developments and adapt as and where we need to. And then kind of outside of kind of the changes in legislation, and so we've still got kind of a lot of exciting plans behind the scenes, which in the long term say will accept the way that will impact on the way we lend in kind of a really positive way.
Brilliant. Okay, so thinking positively about the future rather than negatively.
Definitely.
Love
Yeah.
that. Thank you. And then your final question, thank you very much, is where do you see the future of the private rental sector?
I think all of the changes that have been kind of happening over the past few years have, obviously had that impact on the private rental sector. We're finding that kind of amateur landlords are opting to leave the market, but we're still finding there's a huge demand for kind of affordable housing. And the majority of professional landlords, we think they are kind of here to stay. We have friends at the Deposit Protection Service, and we've done some kind of recent analysis with them on their landlord survey, and we've found that kind of 78% of landlords with 3 or more properties are not considering exiting the market in kind of the next couple of years. And those landlords that have got kind of 6 or more properties, that statistic is then increasing up to 80%. So we're kind of seeing that people are still wanting to stay in the market. And the people that are purchasing with the limited companies are, in fact, kind of looking to add properties into their portfolio as well. That's about 18%. So there's been those real kind of increases in people still purchasing.
So actually, in spite of what I've been reading as headlines, the data that you guys are seeing is that actually those more professional landlords are at least sticking, and some are actually in growth mode as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Lucy, thank you so much for taking the time to come and have a chat with us today and sharing some thoughts and insights. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. It's been great to speak with you.
Cheers. And there you go. That's another Meet the Lender from us this week with Lucy from Zephyr Homeloans. And as always, we do hope you found that useful, and it contains information that maybe will kind of help you on your landlord journey. If you have any questions, do give us a call, 0345 345 6788, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next Meet the Lender.